The next morning Nikolai was up before everyone. He was up before any of the prisoners had stirred, and before the warden or the guards. He was up before even the cook had begun to stroke the fires in the kitchen. But the sun was already peeking over the horizon, and Nikolai guessed it must be about 4 a.m. He was a little weary from the short night, and his legs were a bit stiff, but he flexed them again and again to limber them up. He couldn't afford to sleep in or slack off now. He needed to be up and going, out on the road to the spring so he could get enough water barrels hauled in by Friday. The sun wasn't up yet. It hadn't even begun to rise in the east, as Nikolai threw on his clothes, grabbed a flask of water, and went to the stables to rouse old Maxim. Of course, the hour was earlier than Maxim was accustomed to, but Nikolai managed to get him on his feet and into his harness. The old ox eyed Nikolai warily as if he were suspicious of the man's every move. And why shouldn't he be? This man was crazy, urging him to hurry all day long, pushing him to work all hours of the night. And now he was getting the ox up and out of the stable at an unearthly hour. Nikolai was in a hurry to get going. He didn't think he had time to eat a regular breakfast, but he did stop by the kitchen for a carry-out meal. The cook was up by now and gave him some bread and carrots to take with him. Nikolai knew he could stop by the kitchen later that morning for some hot borscht and Russian bread, but now the cold food would have to do. The man and ox headed west out of the camp and toward the spring. Maxim knew the way even in the dark. He could walk the distance himself without anyone guiding him. He would have even been able to make the trip with Nikolai sleeping in the back of the ox cart. Unfortunately, there wasn't room in the cart. The barrels were too big and took up all the space. The morning was peaceful at this hour, with the silence of nature all around them. The only sound that broke the stillness of the morning was the creaking of old Maxim's harness and the squeaking wheels of the ox cart. Other than that, there was little to punctuate the early morning hour. In the pale light of pre-dawn, Nikolai could see a few lemmings coming out of the burrows they had made for themselves in the matted sedge grass lining the road. A little farther along, he saw a snowy owl perched on a craggy rock, poking its way through the Siberian landscape. And, of course, there were the snowshoe hares, now brown with their summer camouflage. At one point, Nikolai rounded a bend in the road and suddenly caught his breath. Sitting in the middle of the road was a large wolf, his lanky body tall and lean. Nikolai guessed he was about 3 feet tall at the shoulder, and he just sat there staring at the man and ox. Maxim pulled to a stop for a few tense moments. It was obvious the ox didn't really know what to do. Nikolai sensed he was frightened because he could see the muscles ripple and tighten in the ox's neck and shoulders. Did Nikolai need to worry? Was this wolf out scouting for a meal? Would he come back with others for his wolf pack? The wolf finally got up and trotted off to the north. Nikolai breathed a little easier after the wolf left. No one had alerted him to the possibility of wolf attacks out here, and he and Oleg hadn't encountered the wolf the previous day. He consoled himself with the idea that the wolf was probably not a threat to them anyway. There were plenty of lemmings and snowshoe hares for the wolf to hunt and eat. Of course, when the harsh winter struck Siberia come October, Nikolai was not sure where he and the ox would rank on the food chain for a hungry pack of wolves. Food was not exactly abundant for either man or beast in this deserted country. The only other sizable game on the steppes of Siberia would be reindeer that traveled in scattered herds, or so he had been told when he asked Petra the cook during conversation with him in the kitchen one evening.